In 1928, a woman named Catherine Donahue, one of the Radium Girls, had her jaw removed due to radium poisoning, leaving her unable to eat or speak properly. A gruesome consequence of working with glow-in-the-dark paint in a factory just a few years prior. This was not an isolated incident, but rather the tip of the iceberg in a decades-long fight for justice and worker rights that would spark outrage and change the course of history. The women who suffered from radium poisoning, mostly in their early 20s, were employed by companies like the United States Radium Corporation and the Waterbury Clock Company, where they painted watch faces with radium-laced paint, unaware of the deadly consequences. But here's where it gets dark: the companies knew about the dangers of radium, yet they chose to ignore the warnings and prioritize profits over people. The story begins in the early 1900s, when radium was a highly sought-after element, and companies were eager to capitalize on its unique properties. Hundreds of women were hired to paint watch faces with radium-laced paint, which allowed the watches to glow in the dark. The women, mostly teenagers and young adults, were instructed to moisten their brushes with their tongues to create a fine point, thereby ingesting small amounts of radium daily. As the years went by, the women began to experience severe health problems, including anemia, bone cancer, and necrosis of the jaw, a condition that would become infamous as radium jaw. Nobody talks about this part, but the women were also subjected to humiliating and intrusive medical examinations, which often left them feeling degraded and powerless. The first reported case of radium poisoning was in 1906. But it wasn't until the 1920s that the issue gained widespread attention. And this is where everything fell apart. As the number of cases grew, so did the outrage and resistance among the women. In 1927, 5 former dial painters from Orange, New Jersey, sued the United States Radium Corporation, claiming that the company had knowingly exposed them to toxic materials. The case, which became known as Donahue v. United States Radium Corporation, was a landmark moment in the fight for worker rights and feminist history. The women, led by Catherine Donahue, provided detailed testimony about their working conditions and the subsequent health problems they experienced, which helped to expose the corporate greed and neglect that had led to their suffering. But here's the disturbing part: the companies had been aware of the dangers of radium since 1901. When a scientist named Marie Curie had warned about its toxic effects. Yet they continued to prioritize profits over people. The case sparked a national debate about worker safety and corporate responsibility, with many calling for stricter regulations and better protection for workers. As the lawsuit progressed, the women faced intense scrutiny and intimidation from the companies, which tried to discredit them and downplay the severity of their condition. The women were accused of being hysterical and attention-seeking, and some were even forced to undergo unnecessary and invasive medical procedures to prove their claims. But the women refused to back down, and their determination and courage inspired others to join the fight. In 1928, the women won a major victory when the court ruled in their favor, ordering the companies to pay compensation to the affected workers. However, the victory was bittersweet, as many of the women had already suffered irreparable damage to their health, and some had even died as a result of radium poisoning. And this is where the story takes a darker turn. The companies continued to appeal the decision, delaying justice for the women and their families for years to come. The fight for justice and worker rights continued for decades, with the Radium Girls at the forefront of the movement. In the 1930s, the women's struggles led to the establishment of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, which aimed to protect workers from hazardous materials and working conditions. The Radium Girls case also inspired other workers to take action, leading to significant improvements in worker safety and corporate accountability. But here's the shocking part: despite the progress made, the legacy of the Radium Girls is still not widely recognized, and many of the women's stories remain untold. The women's bravery and determination in the face of overwhelming adversity serve as a testament to the power of resistance and the importance of fighting for worker rights and feminist history. Nobody talks about this part. But the Radium Girls case also highlights the darker side of industrial progress and the human cost of corporate greed. As the years went by, the Radium Girls case became a symbol of the struggle for worker rights and feminist history, inspiring countless others to take action. The women's fight for justice and compensation continued, with many of them experiencing significant health problems and financial difficulties. But despite the challenges they faced, the women remained resolute, and their determination ultimately led to significant changes in worker safety regulations and corporate accountability. And this is where everything comes full circle. The Radium Girls case serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of prioritizing people over profits and the need for ongoing vigilance in the fight for worker rights and social justice. The climax of the story comes when Catherine Donahue, one of the leading Radium Girls, testified before the Illinois State Legislature in 1938, demanding justice and compensation for the women and their families, her voice shaking with emotion as she recounted the horrors she and her colleagues had endured. The aftermath of the Radium Girls case was marked by a significant shift in public awareness and attitudes towards worker safety and corporate responsibility. The women's struggles had exposed the darker side of industrial progress, and their bravery had inspired a generation of activists and workers to take action. In the years that followed, the women's health problems continued to worsen, with many of them experiencing premature deaths due to radium poisoning. However, their legacy lived on, inspiring countless others to fight for worker rights and feminist history. The Radium Girls case also led to significant improvements in worker safety regulations, with the establishment of OSHA and the implementation of stricter guidelines for handling hazardous materials. The women's story serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of prioritizing people over profits and the need for ongoing vigilance in the fight for social justice. The Radium Girls story is a testament to the power of resistance and the importance of fighting for worker rights and feminist history. The women's bravery and determination in the face of overwhelming adversity serve as a reminder that even the darkest of stories can lead to significant positive change. As we reflect on the Radium Girls case, we are reminded that the fight for justice and worker rights is ongoing, and that we must continue to prioritize people over profits. The Radium Girls legacy is a powerful reminder of the human cost of corporate greed and the importance of protecting workers from hazardous materials and working conditions. Subscribe for more stories like this, and join us next time as we explore more of the darkest corners of history.